Why they come back after hurting you relationship, healing. There's something that happens when a person walks out of your life after causing you pain. It leaves a mark, a scar on your soul, and then, out of nowhere, they return, as if nothing ever happened, as if the pain you felt didn't matter. But let me tell you something. Their return is not always about love. Sometimes it's about control. Sometimes it's about ego. And sometimes it's simply because they see the light in you that they couldn't find anywhere else. They come back because they remember how you made them feel safe, valued, important. But that doesn't mean they're ready to give you what you need. Many times they come back because they lost access to the energy you gave so freely. Your kindness, your forgiveness, your presence. It was their safe haven. But now the question is not why they come back. The real question is, are you healed enough to choose yourself this time? Healing is not about waiting for someone to realize your worth. Healing is about realizing it yourself, even when they don't. When you choose peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, you break the cycle, and breaking that cycle is the most powerful thing you can do for your soul. So, when they come back after hurting you, pause, reflect. Ask yourself if this return aligns with the healed version of you. And if the answer is no, let them watch from the sidelines as you bloom into everything they never deserved to witness. You owe it to yourself to move forward, not backward. Love yourself enough to close the door and lock it if needed, because true healing is not about getting them back. It's about getting you back. They often come back not because they have experienced some deep transformation or because they have suddenly discovered a new level of love for you, but because they miss the comfort and safety you provided them. When someone hurts you and walks away, they usually underestimate the energy you brought into their life. You were the one who listened when they needed to be heard, who forgave when they fell short, and who gave them a place where they could lay their burdens down without fear of judgment. That kind of comfort is rare. When they leave, they may not realize immediately what they've lost because the world out there doesn't treat them the way you did. Others won't have your patience, your understanding, or your emotional generosity. And so, when the noise of the world quiets and they're left with themselves, they begin to remember the way you made them feel. They begin to miss the ease of your presence and the way you nurtured their spirit. It's not necessarily because they're ready to love you the way you deserve. It's not because they've done the inner work required to ensure they won't hurt you again. It's because they're craving the emotional security you gave them so freely. They remember the unconditional love you extended, even when they didn't fully appreciate it at the time. And now, faced with the emptiness of losing it, they are drawn back to what felt safe and warm. But this longing they feel isn't always about you as a person. Sometimes it's about what you represented. You were their safe place. You were the calm in their storm. And when people lose a place like that, they often try to return, not because they're ready to give, but because they want to receive again. It's essential to understand this dynamic because when someone comes back after hurting you, their return can feel like validation. It can feel like proof that they finally see your value, but their presence alone is not evidence of growth. Missing someone is not the same as respecting them. Wanting comfort is not the same as wanting to build a healthy and loving partnership. That's why you have to look deeper than the surface. Their absence may have made them realize they enjoyed what you gave them, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're ready to give in return. They may not have done the work to heal the parts of themselves that led them to hurt you in the first place. So, while they're missing you, you must ask yourself, do they miss me, or do they miss the feeling of being loved, supported, and cared for? Because if it's only the latter, they will only return to take from you again. The comfort you gave them is powerful, and they may crave it deeply, but that doesn't mean you should hand it back over. You are not their emotional home if they cannot respect and protect the space you've built around your heart. When someone comes back into your life after causing pain, it's important to recognize that their return is not always driven by love or remorse. More often than not, their comeback is rooted in their ego or a desire for control. For some people, leaving you wasn't about finding happiness elsewhere. It was about believing they could always come back whenever they pleased. It's about testing whether they still hold power over you, whether the door to your heart is still unlocked. They want to know if they can still reach for you, still receive the same love, forgiveness, and energy you gave so effortlessly before. This is not about connection. This is about control. When they hurt you and walked away, they might have felt in charge, believing they had the upper hand. But time has a way of humbling people. Perhaps they've realized they don't have access to the same level of love and care you offered, or maybe they've seen you beginning to heal, grow, and glow without them, and that challenges their ego. It's not easy for someone to see you thriving in their absence. For some, the thought of you moving on and rediscovering your power is a threat. So, they return not because they want to love you better this time, but because they want to remind you of their presence, their influence. They want to check if they can still interrupt your peace and pull you back into their orbit. This is why it's critical to examine their motives carefully. Do they return with genuine apologies, clear actions, and a willingness to rebuild trust? Or do they come back with vague words and sweet promises, hoping that will be enough to regain access to your heart? Ego-driven returns are often characterized by surface-level efforts. They'll say just enough to trigger your emotions, to make you question your decision to heal, to make you feel like you're losing something if you don't let them back in. But remember, someone who left you hurting and then returns without doing the necessary inner work is not seeking a healthy relationship. They're seeking validation. They're seeking reassurance that no matter how badly they behave, they still matter in your life. It's a power play whether they realize it or not. For some, it's subconscious, a desperate need to prove to themselves that they're irreplaceable. For others, it's deliberate, a tactic to keep you emotionally tethered to them. Either way, you must be aware of this pattern so you don't confuse it for love. True love doesn't manipulate or test boundaries. It doesn't leave you in pain only to come back expecting open arms without accountability. If their return feels rushed, if it lacks depth and sincerity, it's likely driven by ego and control, not transformation and commitment. You are not a revolving door for someone who only visits when it benefits them. Recognizing this truth is essential for protecting your peace and continuing your healing journey. Would you like me to expand Keynote 3 into 500 words now in the same reflective and emotional style? Or do you want me to complete all 3 remaining keynotes at once so you get them together? Healing requires you to recognize your worth in a way that does not depend on someone else's validation. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that if they come back, it must mean you're valuable, that they finally see what they lost. But real healing is about understanding that your worth was never up for debate in the first place. It's about standing firm in the knowledge that you were enough, even when they failed to treat you with the love and respect you deserved. When you begin to heal, you shift the focus from them realizing your value to you realizing it for yourself, and that is where true power lies. For so long, you might have measured your importance by how much someone stayed, by how much effort they gave, or by how deeply they loved you. But if they left and hurt you, it's not a reflection of your inadequacy. It's often a reflection of their own unhealed wounds and inability to handle the kind of love you offered. Healing asks you to see yourself as whole even when others could not recognize your light. It teaches you to validate your feelings and existence without needing someone else to confirm them for you. The moment you realize that your value is not tied to who chooses you or who walks away is the moment you begin to break free from cycles of emotional dependency. When they come back, it can be tempting to believe that their return somehow proves your significance, but that belief can keep you stuck in unhealthy patterns. Because if you allow their validation to define you, you also give them the power to take it away again. Healing requires you to remove them from the pedestal and place yourself at the center of your own life. It's a shift from asking, "Do they see my worth now?" to affirming, "I've always been worthy, even in their absence." This kind of growth doesn't happen overnight. It often comes after moments of reflection, after tears have dried, after you've picked up the pieces of your heart and started to rebuild yourself. You learn to enjoy your own company, to nurture your mind and soul, and to set boundaries that protect your peace. These boundaries aren't walls to keep love out. They're safeguards to ensure that only the kind of love you deserve is allowed in. When you reach this stage, you no longer see their return as a gift or proof of your value. You see it as a choice you get to make, not from a place of longing or emptiness, but from a place of strength and wholeness. Healing shifts the power dynamic. It teaches you that you are not waiting for anyone to validate your existence. You validate yourself, and in that place of self-worth, you gain the clarity to see whether their return truly aligns with your growth, or whether it's simply a test of how deeply you've learned to love yourself. Breaking the cycle is one of the most challenging yet liberating things you can do for yourself. It means making the conscious decision to choose clarity and peace over the emotional chaos you may have been conditioned to accept as love. For so long, you might have mistaken the highs and lows, the push and pull, for passion. You may have confused inconsistency with depth. But true love doesn't have to hurt, and real connection doesn't leave you questioning your worth. Breaking the cycle requires you to step back and see the patterns for what they are, a loop that keeps you stuck in a place of confusion, pain, and longing for someone else to give you what you have the power to give yourself. When they come back after hurting you, it can trigger a flood of memories and emotions. You remember the good moments, the laughter, the times you felt seen and loved, but healing asks you to remember the whole picture, not just the parts your heart wants to cling to. The same person who now claims to miss you is the one who left you in tears, wondering why you weren't enough. And unless they have done the deep, hard work to change, nothing about their return guarantees a different outcome. Choosing clarity means refusing to let temporary feelings cloud your judgment. It's about asking the hard questions. Has this person demonstrated real growth? Do their actions align with their words, or are they simply offering comfort in the moment without the ability to sustain the love you deserve? Peace is not found in a love that leaves you second, guessing yourself. It is found in a love that feels secure, calm, and mutual. But you can't experience that kind of peace until you decide to stop participating in the patterns that disturb it. Breaking the cycle doesn't mean you stop loving them or that you erase the connection you shared. It means you stop allowing their behavior to dictate your emotional state. It means you learn to love them from a distance, if needed, and prioritize your healing above the temporary satisfaction of having them near. You may feel a strong pull to let them back in, hoping things will be different this time. But ask yourself, what is the cost of giving them access to you again? Does it align with the version of yourself you are trying to become? Or does it drag you back into a version of yourself you've worked so hard to outgrow? The moment you choose clarity and peace, you break a pattern that may have defined your relationships for years. You open the door to a future where love feels safe, steady, and nurturing, not turbulent and conditional. And in breaking that cycle, you teach yourself and others that you will no longer settle for love that hurts. You deserve more. You deserve a love that doesn't require you to abandon yourself to keep it. That kind of love begins with the decision to choose peace over chaos every single time. True relationship healing is not about getting them back. It's about getting yourself back. It's about finding the pieces of you that got lost in the process of loving someone who wasn't ready to love you in return. When they come back after hurting you, it's easy to think that allowing them back into your life is proof of your strength and capacity to forgive. But real healing isn't measured by how quickly you can let them in again. It's measured by how deeply you can honor your own journey, protect your peace, and reclaim the parts of yourself that were neglected while you were trying to hold the relationship together. You may have given so much of yourself in the past, your energy, your time, your love, that you didn't even notice when you started to disappear in the process. Your needs became secondary, your voice grew quieter, and your heart grew heavier. Healing is about reversing that. It's about learning to take up space in your own life again. It's about recognizing that you were never meant to shrink or dim your light for the sake of someone else's comfort. When you focus on getting yourself back, you begin to rediscover the person you were before the pain and even grow into someone wiser, stronger, and more self-aware. This doesn't mean you don't love them anymore. It doesn't mean you hate them either. It simply means you're choosing yourself first this time. Because no matter how much you care for someone, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't keep giving pieces of yourself away and expect to feel whole. Healing teaches you that loving someone should never come at the expense of loving yourself. It's a hard lesson to learn, especially if you've been conditioned to believe that sacrificing your own well-being is what makes a relationship strong. But the truth is, relationships built on self-abandonment are never healthy. They create cycles where you constantly prove your worth instead of simply being loved for who you are. When they come back, it's not about whether they deserve another chance. It's about whether allowing them back aligns with the person you're becoming. Does this version of you, the healed, self-aware, and empowered version, want to reopen the door? Or does she know deep down that the door needs to stay closed, not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect? Getting yourself back means you no longer see their presence as the ultimate prize. You understand that the real prize is your peace, your happiness, and your freedom from patterns that caused you pain. It's about reclaiming your identity, your confidence, and your joy. True healing feels like coming home to yourself after a long and exhausting journey. It feels like finally realizing that you were always enough, and you don't need someone else to complete you. You are already whole, and when you reach that point, you'll find that you're no longer waiting for their return or anyone else's approval. You'll know you've already won because you chose yourself.